This interview was recorded back in September before all of the current events have taken place. Welcome back to part 2 of the incredible talk with Faiza Venzant. So without further ado, let's continue. Hi everybody, welcome back. Thank you again so much for joining us for From the Suggestion Box, navigating feedback, the good, the bad, and the say what? I am so thrilled to have this special, wonderful woman, Miss Faiza Venzant. And she is here and she has just been an inspiration to me. And I'm just so thrilled to have her here. So please, everybody, please welcome her. And Faiza, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
The way my bio starts, it's important to me. So my parents are immigrants from Uganda. They came here to Canada, where I am, in Toronto, Canada, in 1972. They were expelled from the country at that time. Whole another podcast episode. But anyways, they actually made a really easy life transition here in Canada because of so many volunteers and because they were immediately asked to volunteer and take part in their new community. And so, that's where my volunteer story starts. And for the last 20 years, I've been a leader of volunteers, working in various organizations and leading teams, leading groups of volunteers, and really trying to move the needle on what is the definition of volunteering, who gets access to volunteering, and how do we change it so that everybody has a right to participate in building the community that they want to live in. So that's me. Yeah.
And I love what you're saying about own who you are, because I would say maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, I have come into myself. There is many things that I would always hide. And many people only got one aspect of me because there are so many things about me that once you find out about them, people have visceral reactions. Number one is that I was a professional cheerleader. People either love cheerleaders because they're beautiful, they want to be like them, or they hate them because they think they're dumb and attention seeking and got picked on when they were in high school. And so I would never mention it, but it is 1,000% who I am. I am a natural born encourager and cheerleader. I walk with pom-poms.
Yeah.
It's kind of, sometimes you never know when you need to cheer somebody up, and people love poms. Like there's something about rallying. Like I have a pair right there. I could pull them out, but so it was part of myself that I used to hide, that I didn't want to tell people. But now I'm like, I used to be a professional cheerleader. I'm a semi-professional cheerleader now. And then I'm owning, like, I am Latina, yo soy Latina, and I love it. I am a Black Hispanic, and I come from immigrant parents, and this is who I am. But it's taken me a while to get there. But I am now at the point, like, this is who I am. You can either take it or leave it. But I know that when I come into your life, I am going to sow into you the best that I have and give you the best that I have. And that is all I can promise and leave you with. And if that's not enough for you, then cool. But I know that when I lay my head down at night, I have given you my best, and I can sleep peacefully knowing that I've done that. So I love that.
I'm so happy for you that you're there. And like, I think about people who, like, imagine if that's where you were 20 years ago, because the messaging that you got was that who you are is beautiful and wonderful and valued and needed. Imagine like 20 years ago, if that's how you felt versus just a couple years ago.
Right.
And I think that there are people who grow up in this world, and those are the messages they get right away, because and it comes back to representation that we've talked about before. But I feel like, for me, that's been a really big part of how I've been given feedback, how I've taken feedback, why I give the feedback that I do, because of those lessons that I learned around that lack of representation, right? So lack of representation for a lot of managers that I had in working with someone that is a person of color. Also for me, I've never reported to someone other than my high school job at the bulk barn, best boss ever, who was a woman like me, same faith background. Other than that, I've never had a boss who was a person of color. I do now. My board chair at CVA, Amira Barger, who was one of the reasons I joined the board of CCVA to begin with, was because I looked at the board, I saw that she was there. I was like, yep, I want to be on that board.
Yeah. And it's amazing. It's just amazing how something that is seemingly so small, and it's so funny because I didn't even think about it until you just said it. But I have to think. I don't think I have ever had a boss that looks like me.
Yep.
Quite frankly, I think if I did, I don't know how I'd respond. I've never, ever. And so there's many times, in conversations that I would have and various, supervisors, that it's just like, I can't even say this because you're not going to understand where I'm coming from. And, I've just been so used to being silenced. And I don't necessarily mean like you can't say, but just I know that I can't bring it up because I know you're just not going to relate and understand to what I'm trying to say. So I've learned to navigate it. It just becomes second nature. You just learn to navigate. But what's amazing is with everything that's going on, my current supervisor actually one day came and asked me, and she was like, will you be open with me about things that I didn't realize might not necessarily would be unfair, but things that I took for granted that I didn't realize might look differently than they are. And I was like
her privilege, you mean, or is it a woman?
Yeah. Yes. And I was like, maybe I don't know how to answer that. But it was just the sentiment that she even came to me, and she was like, you know what, I realize that there are some things that I now understand, that maybe there's certain things that you do things a certain way, and I never realized there's a reason why you do it that way because da 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 da. And it was like, wow. I mean, it was really cool of her to ask.
I think like what she did is like, that's this whole idea of psychological safety in the workplace, right? And it's like, I can tell when I'm giving feedback or when I'm talking to somebody whether they're feeling safe with me or not. Like, if you can't tell if somebody is feeling psychologically safe with you or not, you've got to do some work on reading or something on your emotional intelligence. Like, you've got to make sure, like, especially if you're a leader, and if you want to call yourself a leader of volunteers, if you are a manager, whatever, like own that role and then do what is required of that title. Like, make sure that you're doing the things that are required of that title, not just that you expect things because you have that title.
Right.
It's so important, that the members of your team feel psychologically safe, and it's so important that you create the environment for that.
Yes. Because
I'm still learning.
Yeah. You definitely can control that culture. It starts with you. And so if it's something that within your volunteer team that you are not happy with, the great thing is you can change it by setting that example and being that example and creating a safe place that people can be comfortable coming and talking to you about whatever it is. That is a whole nother podcast, a whole nother situation. This has been, I'm sorry. Okay, so 2 more questions.
Okay. Yep.
1, what is the greatest challenge that you have ever had to overcome and that you are proud of, and why? And it can be professional, it could be personal, it could be anything.
This is a good one. I'm going to say it is the birth of my son, Malik. He was born when I was 27 weeks pregnant. So he was 3 months early. Yeah. And I can talk about it now, like in a practical way, but I definitely had PTSD from the experience, suffered some depression. It was 3 years ago that he was born. It is, one of the greatest things because of all of the lessons that I learned from that experience. One is the resiliency of the human body. And, right? So for a baby being born and now being this like gorgeous, feisty, confident comedian child, just seeing what the human body is capable of in watching him grow and flourish and thrive and eventually come home. The second for me had to do with control. And it's a lesson that I learned 3 years ago, but it's really helping me with this pandemic right now, I gotta say. In that, like, there are things that are just not in your control. And so being in lockdown, not knowing when you might be able to return to the office, being physically separated from volunteers and colleagues, none of it's in my control, to be honest. And none of it's in my control. And so it's not anywhere where I'm going to put my energy. Whatever I can manage and whatever I can influence, not control, but whatever I can influence today is where I'm going to put my energy and my focus. So that has been that, going through that, like we talked about earlier on. It's kind of full circle how we've come in our conversation, but how we talked about earlier on that, like, sometimes you go through something really difficult, but you come out of it stronger, stronger for it. And I feel like our whole family, I would never wish this experience on anybody, but I do think of it in terms of, like, why did this happen for me, and not why did it happen to me or to him. Yeah. Why did it happen for our family?
Yes. And making the choice to learn from it as opposed to letting it hold you back is so huge and so pivotal. It can make such a difference. Because I have a lot of that type of stuff in my past. That and it literally, and just to make a long story short, so yes, I am engaged now. Woo, I'm so excited. I have an amazing fiance. He's phenomenal. But the person that I was dating right before him passed away from colon cancer.
I remember reading that somewhere. Yeah.
And so it was, why me? Why did this happen? And, like, one day a voice in my head was like, why not you? Why? And it was like, okay. But it was that moment where it was like, this is where it's pivotal for me to learn, to grow, make the decision to grow, make the decision to move forward. What can I learn from this? How can I move forward? And then how can I use this to encourage other people who might be going through it? So, yes, I love it. I
love that you have a different way of framing that experience now.
Oh yeah. And I can, and kind of like you were saying, like, I can talk to it now. A couple of years ago, there's some days I still get caught off guard. I'll be, like, watching a show and I'm like, I got to exit the room, guys. I'll be back. But
I think you, and there will be times now with your fiance where you'll keep learning from that loss, right? Like, this pandemic, one of the most difficult things when Malik was born was that he was living at the hospital and my son Kayam was living at home. And as a mom, I was like, I can't, how do I leave my heart in two places?
Yeah.
And I had all this guilt around not spending every night in the hospital. If I didn't have another child, I probably would have just lived there myself. But now with this pandemic, like, we are at home together all the time. And, like, when I have these moments where I'm like, I am so sick and tired of these children. I remember what it was like to have them in two different places. And then I remember my privilege, because, to be honest, the fact that I would see other families in the NICU, and there was one woman who was living there who her entire family was an 8-hour drive away. And I would think to myself, like, I get to go home every night and sleep in my own bed, and my parents can come and go. She is by herself here. And my privilege really came into focus for me in that hospital experience with Malik's birth, when I was like, wow, I have the best of this worst experience. But I feel that way now with this pandemic. Like, it sucks and it's hard, but it's hard because it's infringing on my privilege, to be honest. It's not hard in the ways that I know that it is for a lot of other people. I have a hot shower every night. I have a bed. I have the health of my family. I have food to eat. I got a new job in the midst of a pandemic. And I'm not saying that it's not okay for me to complain about this pandemic being hard, but I got to put that into perspective.
Right. And, I had a conversation with my mom just the other day, and I was just like, she was asking me how I'm doing. And even though I wasn't necessarily like super bubbly and I was like, I really don't have anything to complain about. I am in a very, very good place. And this, like you said, it's not like, it's hard because of the privilege. It's more of this. I have been more inconvenienced by the pandemic than truly affected by it. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people have lost their lives. Some people have had like traumatic, life-changing experiences. Has it been easy? No. Have things happened that have affected how I live on a daily basis? Absolutely. But it's more of an inconvenience than a complete disaster of, oh my gosh, I am now homeless. I don't have a loved one anymore. And so I really try to keep that in perspective on those days when it's hard, because it's not easy, no matter where on the spectrum you are of it. It's either challenging or more challenging.
And I think if you keep in mind that that's where you're at, everybody that you come into contact with, just remember they're in the same place, right? Like everybody is trying to figure their way out. And what I hope is that, like, when we are on the other side of this, you still remember that. Like, there are people that started off at this pandemic unhoused, not knowing where their next meal was going to come from. And they're dealing with all of that and all of this on top of that.
On top of it, exactly.
Yeah, that is who, and that is why I think also our work is so important. The work that we do and who we support, the volunteer support, is so important. I had this really great story of a volunteer who has said that she volunteers at our food bank. And what she has said is that volunteering has been so good for her mental health during this pandemic. So at a time where a lot of people are like, I feel safer just to stay away and to stay put. For her, she's like, I need to step forward. This is so good for my mental health to do this work, right? And to serve these communities. And so meet people where they're at their highest level of contribution. That's what Chris says. If today that person can give you an hour of their time, then take it, and take it graciously, and be appreciative. As appreciative of the person that's giving you 5 hours of their time, right?
Exactly.
They're both giving at their highest level of contribution.
Right. And they're giving us something that they can never get back. Because once time is gone, that's it. And the fact that they decided and chose to share that gift of time with us is not to be taken lightly. Because it's a precious commodity that you don't get back. So, okay. This has been amazing. All right, so
for me
we're going to end on a fun note. So I have this book, 3,000 Questions About Me.
Awesome.
So you choose the number.
Okay.
And then you answer the question and I answer the question. And if we don't like the question, we don't have to answer it. We could choose another number.
Okay. So what year was your daughter born?
Oh, she was born. Oh my gosh, I almost put my year. I'll get hers is 1997.
Okay. Is there a page 1997 or 97?
There sure is.
Okay, let's do 97.
Okay. I was like 75.
From my Coke once again, not an ad, but Coca-Cola, it could be.
1997. There it is. Okay. Oh, I think this is very appropriate for you. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I'm ready. If you were elected mayor of your current city, I mean, I don't, forgive my ignorance, but do they have mayors in Canada?
Do? Yeah.
Okay, great. What is the first thing you would do?
I would make sure that everyone who is unhoused has a place to live. I think that housing first for so many different reasons, for mental health, for personal safety, when you have a home and you have a place to sit down, to feel safe, to be able to do whatever it is that you need to do to be healthy. I know that the security that comes from having a home and a place that is yours, that is just something that I think every single person must have. And there's absolutely no reason why there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of hotels that are sitting empty right now. And yet I could walk outside my door and there are people, my neighbors, my community members who don't have a house. It's just unacceptable.
Awesome.
Yeah, the first thing that I would do. Yeah. What about you? What would you do?
I'd make everybody have mandatory volunteer hours. No, I'm just kidding. What would I do? Okay. If I was mayor, I would start an unbiased media company that is literally giving strictly the facts and let people make their own decisions.
Oh yeah, that's my Instagram page. No, I hear you.
Check, it's already done.
I hear you. Like, what is the truth these days, right?
Yeah. Because it's just so disheartening, and it's, it's just so crazy, because if I was, as a manager and a leader of volunteers, and I'm having to sit between two people who are telling opposite sides of the story, my goal is to hear both sides of the story and make the best judgment call that I can. Man. And just because it's the election year down here, it's just, man, like you can't listen to either side. They're both like yelling and being mean, and it's just like, oh my gosh. Like, I don't know. But that's what I would do. I would make sure that people would have a resource to get strictly the facts without outside influence, so that they can make sure that they can make their own decision.
Yeah.
And be informed enough to make their own decision, and that they know that they made the best decision that they could. That's what I would do.
Love it. I love it. You would make a great mayor.
As would you. Let's campaign. Venzant and Smith 2022. No.
I can't take on another job right now. I am like, my book is just like filling to the brim right now.
I love it.
I can't take on another job.
Oh my goodness.
My dad always tells me, like, you need to run for politics. You'd be such a good politician. And then I'm just like, no, Dad, I actually want to get work done. Like, it's okay.
Oh my gosh, hilarious. Yeah, oh my gosh, I love it.
It's not my vehicle. It's not where you're going to get my highest level of contribution. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially just because I'm very, what's it called? Like, accomplishment oriented, right? Like, this is the goal, done. That's why, we have the notebook, we have the checklist to get stuff done. And I don't thrive well in a situation, like even in a work situation where like definite answers aren't coming and we can't make moves and we can't finish the project and move forward. Like, I don't do well. Like,
I
need
unknown
results.
The gray areas.
Yeah.
Well, it's so good that you know that about yourself, because if you know that about yourself, you can figure out if you want to work on those other parts, or if you want to find work or find opportunities or put yourselves in situations where you can be that accomplishment person or that achiever, right? And you don't have to be all of those other things, because there are other people in the world that can be strategizers and that can be the think tank,
Yes.
And people say, like, know your lane and stay within it. I don't necessarily agree. I think you can have many different lanes, but I think it's good to know where you feel safe. It's good to know where you can be at your highest level of contribution. And it's good to know you know, it's good to know where you need to learn and where you need to develop it if you want to do those things for yourself.
Yes, and I love it. I love the lane analogy, because the thing is, on a road, it's going the same direction, but you have your different lanes. You have your slow lane, you have your medium lane, you have your fast lane, and sometimes depending on where you are and what you're doing, you have to navigate the lanes differently to get to where you need to be, but it doesn't mean don't go that direction. You just choose at that particular season which lane you need to be in, but just don't, cross over when there's another car in it, because then that's a whole nother problem. And I probably took
here we have bike lanes, and like for me, like that's not my lane, bike lane. I don't look cute in a helmet, but anyways.
I am sure you do, though. I'm sure you do. Oh my gosh, Faiza, thank you so
Thank you, Nicole.
much.
Thank you.
This has been so great. I feel like I've just been sitting, having coffee with a friend for years. This has been amazing, and I'm hoping that it will not be the last time. Truly, seriously, thank you so much. Like this, not only just having this conversation, but just being able to just talk to you about things that I would never be able to talk to anybody else about. Having that feeling of walking in the room and looking to see, is there anybody else like me in here? And then no, there isn't. Okay, I have to adjust to
I have to be on my best behavior because I'm representing all people of color right now.
Yes.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for carving out time in your day to spend with us, with me. And nobody else here. I don't know. And thank you all for tuning in, and I really hope you got something out of this today. I know I sure did. So I'm just hoping that you will watch it on the replay, click the subscribe button down below. That way you don't miss any new episode that comes out. And I just want to thank you for joining us again on From the Suggestion Box, navigating feedback, the good, the bad, and the say woo! All right, I'll see you next